Well, most of us have known that Brian Warren was a professional football player in the CFL for 7 years, and you don't get to see these rings every day. So, Brian, just 2 Grey Cup rings, please. In 1995, Brian, along with 7 other dedicated men, worked tirelessly to bring the transforming power of Jesus Christ to Canadian men as founding board members of Promise Keepers Canada. 2 years later, in December 1997, Canada in Prayer was birthed, and intercessory prayer in Canada went high-tech, like everything else, right? In May of 2000, there was a spiritual breakthrough at an historical gathering that was held in the nation's capital. Over 8,000 believers attended the Canadian Prayer Assembly, while countless others watched on the TV or the internet. The man's still running. These are the opening chapters I'm giving you. In fact, as we said earlier, he was here in April with running shoes designed just for him. Well, for needy children. And we said already, Brian, that went so well.
Yes.
We were so impressed with the team you assembled. Business people, corporations, people who want to make a difference in the world.
You know what? There's so many people that really want to make a difference, and all they need is an opportunity, a vehicle. And so it's really neat. I mean, the running room, immediately after the show, people went into in Edmonton and different places, and they said, I need some Brooks material because I don't run, I'm a first timer, but I want to give some shoes to a needy kid. So I'm eternally grateful. There's a lot of great things happening.
You're working with people of all ages, and little confession, I still have my wonderful Admit One ticket to your church at Square One, Mississauga. It's in the Empire Movie Theater.
That's right.
And this is too cool. I mean, you can get one of these too. When I show up, I'm not going to say when I get there, I will get a free coffee or a bagel here.
Montreal bagel, that's right.
Coffee, which is just innovative and taking off like crazy.
Well, we want to give you some soul food, some food for the spirit, but also some food for the body. So there'll be nothing that is left unturned.
Now, you're a man who's always full of enthusiasm and the joy of the Lord. We need to see that because, I don't know, fear factor is really kind of moving in large. This is just one aspect of what some people are really worried about. What's the latest? 1,000 cases worldwide, 1,000 cases in 21 countries. We now have 140 cases in Canada of H1N1 flu. That's just one aspect of what's unsettling people today, and even the faithful.
Yes. You know what? It's interesting because right now nervousness is at an all-time high. And I believe it's because we're not doing a good job of managing the speed of information. Before you'd get information, it would probably take a month or even maybe 3 months to hear things that are happening around the world. But now it takes place in a nanosecond. And because of that, we're not managing the speed of information. And as a consequence, we are hearing what people have been saying in their nooks and crannies for a long time. But I also believe that this is God's design. I believe it's a divine design in order to bring us to a place. There's a boiling taking place in this new era right now. I know even when we were talking about the financial crash in the United States and actually happening all around the world, that it wasn't something that just took place solely in the U.S., but it was in China, in Korea, in England, Europe, everywhere. Everyone is experiencing the same thing. It's a global crisis. And but one of the beautiful things is the good news is the bad news is not all true, because there's no recession in heaven. God is still the same. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. So now what we have to do is we have to do a good job of going to the scriptures, understanding what is God saying right now, and how are we, his people, going to move forward in order to allow us to thrive in these times. I really believe this is probably the greatest time for the church.
And we're hearing, wow, I was just with some women from Aurelia, and they were talking about people just showing up at church.
Yes.
People are looking for answers. This is an opportune time for the truth that never changes. Isn't that important? When things are shaking, you say, what do I know for sure?
Yes.
Because nothing out here is very sure.
Well, you're absolutely right. You know, this is not new. I know in the book of Hosea, God said, the silver is mine, the gold is mine, and not long I'm going to shake. And he says, I'm going to shake the rich, the poor, the black, the white, the red, the brown, the young, the old. And when we find that our foundation is shaking, we recognize God's getting our attention. There have been a number of Christian leaders. I know David Wilkerson sent out something, and Kay Arthur and many others. And he was talking about a shattering calamity that may take place, and he feels and this is one of the same men and Christian leaders who's had a long line of just communicating truth in Times Square. You remember the cross and the switchblade? Yeah. He actually did some things with that, and phenomenal church. So when you hear these things...
Huge influence on Nicky Cruz.
Nicky Cruz, that's right. You know what, when you hear these things from Kay Arthur, when you hear it from David Wilkerson, and he quotes Psalms 11, if the righteous foundations are destroyed, what shall the righteous do? And it talks about in the day of his power, they will be volunteers as well. And you ask the question, how could we be volunteers in the day of God's power? Well, recognizing there's nothing in the world, but only God has the answer, number one. And number two, if the righteous foundations are destroyed, what shall the righteous do? Build them again. Build them again. That's where prayer comes in. That's where we start getting the whole story, not just a chicken little report that the sky is falling, that something bounces on your head and you say, all of it's falling in. But God does have a description, I really believe, and a word that he's been putting in my own spirit about this new era. Because if you think more, even the place where you live, in that subdivision, if you tried to find that same place 30 years ago with the maps that you're using 30 years ago today, you wouldn't be able to find it. But if you use your God positioning system, your GPS, you're going to find it because it wasn't on the map. So we really need new maps and an Issacharian understanding the signs of the times.
Hold on.